Good afternoon, Horned Frog fans. Jamie Plunkett, Jeremy Clark, Stephen Johnson, and Melissa Treebwasser here at the Frogs Insider Postgame Show after a 35-24 win in the battle for the Iron Skillet over the SMU Mustangs. Guys, it was a fantastic game, back and forth, some record moments that we're going to get into. But I got to start with the most obvious storyline of the day, and that is Gary Patterson getting honored at halftime as part of the 2025 Hall of Fame class. We are actually going to start here and then move our way into the game because I wanted to say it's not necessarily a news story that Gary's in the TCU Hall of Fame now, because I think everybody at this table agrees that he deserves it. I'm impressed personally that it happened so quickly with the way things ended in 2021.
Not to mention he was just on Baylor's staff. What was that, last season? So I'm sure that made things a little bit more complicated. Well, anytime a legend leaves and his tenure kind of ends the way it did, the way GP's did, I know that can make just things complicated. But I do think it was a good sign. TCU probably went out of his way to make sure, let's honor what he did. Let's do that. And let's not have GP waiting. I don't know how long that process. Let's not have him waiting 5 or 10 years when he's the greatest coach in program history.
Yeah, I mean, I think it was a nice moment. It's, this has been a conflict for TCU fans, especially those that have been around for a while, of kind of, the way that things ended, Gary's path since then, to have him come back, to be welcomed back, to get a huge ovation. I mean, the crowd was 100% behind him, as they should be. And, I was right down there on the field, and he was emotional. I think it touched him and it impacted him, and the reaction. Jason Verrett was there hyping him up, which was really cool as well. I'm glad that it was done. I think that's a nice way for Mike Buddy to kind of put his stamp on the Hall of Fame as well, and to kind of start his tenure here. So it's been kind of the elephant in the room around TCU athletics. And so it was well-deserved, as you said, and I think something that was really well executed as well.
I'll probably make some people mad, but we're not sitting in this beautiful press box. We're not sitting in this beautiful stadium. TCU's not playing in the Big 12.
Yeah.
Arguably without the success of Gary Patterson and the teams that he put forth ever since he became head coach. Great Rose Bowl team, the 2014, 2015 team. It was really cool to see him honored. I saw the same thing. I think all of us saw the same thing. He was clearly getting a little emotional. You could see the tears and twinkling in the OGP eye, but it was great for them to honor him so early.
If anybody has a problem with that, Jeremy, I'd like to speak to them about their issue with that statement, because you're 100% right. None of this is here today without Gary. None of this is where TCU wants it to be without his legacy here and the work that he did over more than 2 decades at the helm of this program. And so let's transition right into that. We got to sit in this beautiful stadium today and watch TCU beat SMU for the final time in the Iron Skillet rivalry. For now, they now hold the all-time record over SMU, 54-43-7 in the 104th match. They come away with the win. They are 3-1 since Sonny Dykes took over against SMU, last year being the one blip on that radar. How big was this win for the Horned Frogs, not only in the context of the Iron Skillet, but in the context of getting to 3-0, finishing non-conference undefeated?
I think it's huge. I mean, this was a game that I was saying last week was a measuring stick game for them. We wanted to see how good the offense could play against a defense that had some athletes. SMU was having a little bit of trouble on defense this year, but they still have some really good athletes. That roster's loaded top to bottom with very good players offensively and defensively. Again, we saw the offenses go out there and kind of handle their business. Went out there, and Josh Hoover had a Josh Hoover day. Eric McAlister finally had his breakout day, which we're going to talk a lot about in the show because he's from Azle, where I'm from. I've been touting this kid for 17 years now. But, this was a great win. And just so you guys know that are watching at home, when Jamie was talking about this win, the hairs on his arms were standing up. He's got goosebumps. Melissa, same way. They're both TCU alums, and this is a great win for both. I'm so happy for these two. For them to have those bragging rights when SMU fans come around. But defense, listen, man, I said it on the predictions this week. I felt like it was going to be a bend, don't break defense. I'm going to give Kevin Jennings some props, man. That's a really good quarterback. I mean, the way he eluded pressure, the way he eluded some of that pressure and was able to find receivers and throw pinpoint passes, that's pretty impressive. Josh Hoover, we saw, does the same thing now. He can avoid pressure, get outside the pocket. But, man, what a great win, 3-0. You could start conference play. on the road at Arizona State. They're going to play a similar top quarterback that has those same kind of elusiveness skills. And, I feel really confident with them going into Big 12 play now.
Yeah, I mean, it's a big game because you needed to get through the preseason 3-0 to set yourself up for the future. But as Sonny Dykes said, the season starts Friday, right? Like at the end of the day, your goal is to win a Big 12 championship. But I think for those of us that are of a certain age, this one meant a lot. I'm not going to hide from the fact that this was a game that I came into very nervous for. It was very important to me when it's going to be the last of something. And if it is going to continue in some form or fashion, it's not going to be with the Iron Skillets. And Sonny said they were going to take a jackhammer to it after the game. But
I think he said sledgehammer.
Oh, sledgehammer, you're right.
Yeah.
Jackhammer, I kind of feel like is more fun. But it's nice if something's gonna end, you want it to end with you possessing the thing, right? And so to have the trophy in Fort Worth to say goodbye to this series for however long that ends up being, that matters to the fan base. And while we're talking about the fan base, I really want to give credit to the student section today. This was not a sellout. The very upper decks, it was tough. It was 11 a.m. It was hot, whatever. But the student section was unreal today. They were loud. I heard after the game that Josh said loudest environment he's ever played in, which is awesome. 6,000 kids set a record. This is obviously the biggest freshman class in TCU history, and they seem bought in. And so for that reason alone, when you talk about what's coming up in the future, to have the fans here loud, engaged, and bought in, and have them see a win like this today, that may make this a really hard place to play again in a way we haven't seen since 2022.
And I think big picture wise, I know overall in terms of Big 12, it's not a conference game. TCU could have easily rebounded if they lost this game. I just think from an optic perspective, just around DFW, and even a bit nationally, there was so much, you could almost call it grandstanding this week. Oh, this game needs to be played, but you put the game on ESPN2, so how much really people cared about it. But I think you didn't want to give up losing 2 in a row to SMU, allowing them to continue to build momentum in the Metroplex with only recruits, with branding and all of that, just because you don't want to be the reason SMU continues to ascend in that power conference. I just think the fact they were able to pull it off. Now, as you said, Sonny's won 5 of the last 6, 3 of the last 4 at TCU. Now TCU can end, pause, whatever they can do in this rivalry. They're still Big Brother. They're still the premier program in DFW. And I think this was the type of game where they just reminded the entire Metroplex who really runs DFW.
I think it was really important to stunt some of that momentum for SMU because we don't know what's coming 5, 6, 7 years down the road as far as more conference realignment, super conferences, this third-party thing that Cody Campbell wants to have antitrust exemptions and to do all the TV contracts and whatever else may come. You're right. You've got to put your foot down at some point, Stephen, and say, no, we're still the program to beat here in DFW. We're still the program to beat not only on the field, but for recruits, Jeremy, for all the other kind of things that go along with that.
We've also gotten Stephen to call SMU little brother now twice in 2 weeks. And that's really the big
that's
win.
huge. That's actually a big. He's riding high. He's riding high after Memphis's win over Arkansas.
Rank the Memphis Tigers.
Well, you have control over that, sir.
They'll be on my ballot.
Number 1.
Yeah, the rest of the AP voters need to invest in multi-view like I did, so you can watch glorious games like Memphis upsetting Arkansas and TCU.
It's a write-off. It's a write-off.
All right, guys, let's jump into the actual game.
We got the skillet might make an appearance.
Oh, can we see the skillet?
Can the skillet make an appearance?
Can we see the skillet really quick? Oh, we might have the actual Iron Skillet
guys,
coming
I've never
on
gotten to touch the
camera.
I might cheer up.
While Kyle's walking over here with the Iron Skillet, a little anecdote from Dave Wilson's ESPN article today. The skillet broke in 2018, and TCU had to go out and replace it. But it is a pretty good-looking thing. How about this Iron Skillet?
You can make
Look, we could
a few good ribeyes.
You could get a couple
ribeyes are good.
Couple good horse steaks in here. I'm gonna pass this bad boy down.
Yeah,
y'all take a look at that.
Hold on, y'all watch Melissa's eyes as she holds this.
It's hefty.
She's gonna tear up. She's gonna tear up, folks.
Chicken fried steak on there.
This is it. Oh man, this is cool. Thank you for letting that. This is really cool. I've never gotten to hold a rivalry trophy before, and this makes me feel really. This is awesome. I'm getting a picture with this after we finish the show, so that's very. Yeah, it's a little heavy. I got.
It's a big old skillet. It's a big old skillet. Thinking about when Sonny was still on the other side of this rivalry, and they did the video after he won, and I think it was 20 or 19, something like that, and he's cooking up the frog legs in the skillet. I think they had to have used a different one because that one is way too big to only hold 2 frog legs. You can fit a whole. Yeah. You could fit a whole horse leg in there or something if you really wanted to.
Maybe a pony leg.
All right, let's jump into this football game because it was chaotic. It had everything. It had turnovers. It had big plays. It had drops. It ran the gamut. We're going to start with Josh Hoover, who finished 22 of 40 for 379 yards, 5 touchdowns, and an interception in what I think all 4 of us would agree was not his best day at the ballpark. Had a couple high throws. He was missing high early. Jeremy, you and I were talking about that as the game was going on. He settled in late. He took some big hits for the first time this season, had to rebound a little bit. Just overall, what did you think of his performance?
I mean, he gutted through it. I mean, 22 of 40 is not something to write home about, but he threw some really precise passes.
Yep.
One thing that I really like about Josh, and Melissa, you mentioned this in the post game and asked him about it, and I asked him about it. We've seen a new Josh Hoover, and I don't know if he takes offense to it, like he couldn't run before or something, but he says he's faster now because he has lighter shoes. But I think just his ability to escape the rush, get outside the pocket, and make really good throws. We saw 1 touchdown that should have been a touchdown, but that's a whole new story. But, man, he just every time, Sonny said it best, every time he drops back to pass, you just think something good is going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
And when it doesn't, it's kind of like, oh, wow, something good didn't happen. When you have that type of confidence in your quarterback as a coaching staff and as media watching and fans, I mean, I really, truly feel this is going to sound like the most homerish comment probably said, but I feel like he's a top 5 quarterback in the nation, if not a top 3. And
I think it's hard to argue otherwise.
if this guy continues to play like he is and TCU continues to get W's each week, you have to start counting him as one of the top quarterbacks in the nation and start involving him in some of those
Postseason award?
Yeah,
those
you don't want
award
to say the word yet,
conversations.
but you're thinking
Yeah,
it.
I
We're
don't
all
want to say
thinking
the
it.
word. I don't want to jinx it, but you have to start putting his name in those conversations. But I think he did good. Obviously, some throws he would want back.
Yep.
He's going to tell you it wasn't a good performance. He probably looked at the stat line and probably didn't believe he threw for 300-something yards and 5 touchdowns. But he's got 2 interceptions on the year, guys. And I would argue that those 2 interceptions are not his fault. He had a tip pass from high pass to Jordan Bailey that was tipped and got picked off. And then the interception today, and Eric even, pretty much admitted that should have been a pass that he should have caught. But Josh is playing on another level right now.
I think if we're being honest, we're keeping it the book. If there was any other power conference, if there was a power conference quarterback in the Big Ten or SEC that set a program record, led his team to 9 wins in his first real season as a starter, he would have already been on those Heisman watch lists, All-American watch lists, whatever the case may be. But I think that's some brand. I don't want to say branding issue, but that's just a kind of some of the byproduct of being in the Big 12. You got to work a little bit harder to kind of earn their respect. But I think he's easily been a top 5 quarterback. So many of these quarterbacks that we thought were better than him just played at bigger schools. Like, I would take Josh over Nussmeier, take him over Lagway. I would take him over Arch Manning. Definitely would take him over Cade Klubnik. That guy. So at this point, material Oklahoma's pretty good. But off the top of my head, yes. Eddie Sawyer's doing this thing at Baylor, but I think Josh has easily been the top 5 quarterback. Anytime you can have almost 380 yards, 5 touchdowns, and we're like, it wasn't his best game. I think that just says it all about his talent, his maturity, and just the progression he's made in his second real season as a starter.
Well, and I think the difference this year between now and then is we saw a little bit of that gunslinger, like that absolute prayer that Josh was the favorite of the Lord on the Horned Frogs when Eric came back for that, which was a great line. But for him to have to use his legs a little bit more, to have to buy time in the pocket, to take some hits and keep getting back up, and on a day where he wasn't his sharpest, find ways to get the ball in the hands of the guys that can help him win this game. That says a lot about his maturity and his growth, not just as a quarterback, but as a leader of this program. And yeah, it's, I think you're absolutely right. So when you played just about anywhere else, we'd be talking about Josh a lot differently, but it's really hard to find 5 quarterbacks that you would trust more in the fourth quarter of a big game like a game like today than Josh Hoover. And I just think back to, almost exactly a year ago against UCF and how TCU was the team that wilted in the fourth quarter. And today, as Josh said post-game, TCU is established itself and we're the bigger, stronger, faster team, the more prepared team when the game was on the line. And, McAlister makes 2, just absolute, single-handedly makes 2 ridiculous plays. But they were in a position to win because Josh fought through the struggles. He fought through the mistakes. He fought through what was not his sharpest day and found a way to win.
even on those 2 passes to McAlister in the fourth, they were right on the money.
Yeah.
Yep.
I mean, they were right in his chest, and Eric made huge plays out of them.
He turned into a grown man when TCU needed him most. Josh Hoover now 1/4 of the way through the season. Exactly 1,000 passing yards, 11 passing touchdowns to just 2 interceptions. He is on pace to once again break the single-season passing record at this point.
Over
in the
4?
season.
And
He's
when
right
he
at 4.
doesn't have to do it by himself like he did a year
Right.
ago, and a much more balanced, and with 3 different players that have had 3 great receiving games for him.
Absolutely. Frog fans, get in the comments. Tell us what you think about Josh's day. What were your other big observations from this win, 35-24 over SMU? We're going to keep the postgame show rolling right now because all of you have mentioned now Eric McAlister, 8 catches, 254 yards, and 3 touchdowns.
Oh, man.
Second most receiving yards in a single game in TCU history. He gets 13 yards shy of Josh Doxson's game 2015 against Texas Tech. It could have been bigger. That's crazy. It's crazy to me that you're looking at a stat line like that for a TCU wide receiver. And my first thought is it could have been bigger.
It was the strangest great game, all-time great game I think you'll ever see from a receiver. You had the interception. There was at least one drop on like a slant where he had it, the SMU defender ripped it off, and then maybe another one. So he had a couple of drops. So we could easily be talking about 350, 375, and then there was obviously the touchdown that was. Sonny told us they reviewed it or they took a look at it. All the pictures we've seen from some great photographers that were in the stands. Eric McAlister was in. At the very least, he should have been at the 1 yard line, if not a touchdown. But I just think overall, this is exactly the type of performance he wanted to have when we talked to him in the offseason. He wants to win the Blitnikoff. He wants to be an All-American. He wants to be a first-round pick. And this is the type of performance, considering this is the toughest opponent TCU's faced, national game, rivalry game, and you just love seeing him step up, especially seeing how hard he was blocking in week 1, seeing how hard he was blocking in week 2, and not him getting discouraged when he could have easily. This is a big year for him. There was a lot of money on the line for him. He could have easily been frustrated, but you saw that patience, that maturity. Now it obviously paid off with one of the best guys we see from the TCU receiver.
You know, I loved what he said post game. I'm not going to talk too much because I want to give Jeremy plenty of time to wax
Talk about Hazel's
Eric. It's Eric and it's Ed Small. Like we have to. Jeremy is the expert on those 2 guys. But I love what he talked about. How he said, blocked my ass off in game 1, and I did it again in game 2, and it was my time to be the playmaker. But with no bitterness and no jealousy, like he did what he had to do to make sure his team won. And then when it was his time to shine, even after a tough start, he really rose to the occasion. It was very fun to see a kid that had big goals and big promises, in the off season, kind of remind people, hey, I can do this. I think I looked over at Jamie at one point and was like, I don't think Eric's getting 1,400 yards this season after the first half. Well, all of a sudden, I look really dumb as per usual. Also, the other thing I really love is he kind of self-scouted himself for the NFL, and he said everybody sees my height, 6'3", 6'4", and thinks possession receiver, but I might not be the fastest guy, but I'm trying to score every time
He's
I
not
touch the ball.
slow.
But he's not slow. Him and Josh, maybe we got to get them on the GPS and see who's a little bit faster in the open field.
I think the cool thing about it is the biggest question fans and media had coming into the season was, how are they going to replace Jack Besh, J.P. Richardson, and Savion Williams? Well, through 3 games, there's been 3 different receivers with 100-yard receiving games. So that's a very, very good sign. But this game reminded me so much. I've known Eric. He's from the same hometown. I've known him since he was a freshman in high school. And they knew back then he was going to be a college receiver. He just had those intangibles about him. Surprisingly, not one school from Texas.
That's so crazy to me.
Not a Power 4, Power 5, whatever it was back then, G5. No one offered him, which was amazing because the kid had 1,600 and 1,700 yards his junior, senior seasons. But this game reminded me, he was I believe a senior, and he had the exact same kind of game in the playoff. He had a couple crucial drops, but he ended up having almost 300 receiving yards. So it's kind of a little bit of give and take. You'll take those few drops, and then you get immaculate catches like he did when Josh throws up a prayer and Eric comes down with it, and Eric makes clutch catches. That one that he got robbed on we'll be talking about that for maybe as much as we still talk to this day about Max Duggan not being out of bounds when they played Baylor a few years ago. So
David Tyree-esque, right? With
exactly.
Kendrick Miller in the Big 12 championship game. I still think he scored a touchdown.
Yeah. And it was so great to see him overcome that slow start because I think you said it, Jamie, asking him the question, or maybe Steven did, just showing those leadership qualities as a receiver, helping your teammates, like KB get that 75-yard touchdown. He took ownership and becoming a good blocker, knowing that he probably wasn't going to get a lot of throws his way in those 2 games. So he's now shown to NFL scouts with his goal of being a first-round NFL guy that not only can he block, he's got very deceptive speed. Eric is not slow. He's not a 4.3 burner. He's not as fast as Quentin. Mm-hmm. But how many times have y'all seen Eric McAlister get caught from behind the last 2 years?
Not today.
No, you look at Texas Tech last year. You look at the Kansas game last year. Mm-hmm. He's just a clutch receiver. And he is so powerful. He breaks tackles and he is able to outrun guys. And that's something that he's always been like, even in high school. And man, it's just great to see just that hometown kid being 14, 15, and now he's making big plays on the college stage the way he is.
He may not be the fastest guy out there. He's certainly not slow, like you said, Jeremy. But I think what he does incredibly well is when he gets the ball after contact, like we saw on those 2 slants today, he gets up to his top speed really quickly.
Really
and so that helps him create some of that separation and that distance once he gets after contact. And like you said, he doesn't get chased down a lot because of that. He can get up to 5-10 yards of headway, and then he's just gone after that. It's really good to see. Let's keep on rolling here. A couple other really good performances today, although they may not stand out in the box score. I thought Jordan Dwyer had a couple really important catches on 3rd downs today as TCU went 9 of 17 on 3rd down conversions, 3 of 4 on 4th down conversions as well. Really good in late down situations today. And then Trent Battle stepping up for an injured Kavorian Barnes, who we did not see today. He finishes with 7 carries for 60 yards, got going downhill, especially in the second half, averaged 8.6 yards per carry. What y'all think about Trent Battle today?
I think it just goes to show you that when it comes to the running back position, I know we all like the guy that can get the biggest runs, that's explosive, and that's Jeremy Payne to a lesser extent Nate Palmer. But I just think Trent Battle, you just saw his vision. You saw with like the decisiveness of what he had when he was just trying to hit the hole. There were a couple runs with Jeremy Payne who still had a solid game where we were like, cut it upfield, hit the hole. You never really said that with Trent. If there was a hole to be hit, whether it was for a 10-yard game or a 3-yard game, Trent really hit it. And he's a guy that's been playing since that national championship run. And he's just you need guys like Trent Battle on your team, guys that are willing to step up like they are today, and also guys that are willing to do what they have to do with like special teams. He's great at pass protection. So I think it was really dope, really nice to see him kind of lead the way running the ball like that. Especially, he was banged up at the end of fall camp, had like an Achilles thing. So he's off to a hot start. Had a great game against North Carolina, and I just think it goes to show that TCU's running game is in a much better place than it was last year, even though they only averaged 3.7 yards per carry.
Yeah, I think Josh Hoover said he was steady, called Trent Battle steady. And again, I think the importance of having a guy that has been around and understands how to not just do the big things well, but the little things, it's a huge difference maker for really, really young room still. So Trent Battle, I think, is a guy a lot of fans take for granted, a lot of us take for granted. But to see him be rewarded, to be healthy and to hopefully stay healthy this season. Yeah. He's shown he can be a contributor at a high level and how important he is to TCU because there's so many different things he can execute at a very high level.
Amari DiMercado.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I'm not comparing Trent to Amari. I think Amari is a very talented back. Mm-hmm. But just showing the patience of a guy that's waited for his time, mm-hmm. and he makes plays when he's given the opportunity. That 27-yard run that he had where he went one way, reverse field, and came back was a great run. He showed some speed, showed some toughness, breaking tackles. And the run game wasn't as good. It was better than what it was against Abilene Christian, right? They lost 8 yards on a reverse to Major Everhart. I think Josh Hoover actually, getting sacked a few times hurt that rushing total maybe. But for them to go out, Jeremy Payne, first play of the game, 22 yards, on the left side. I think the run game is kind of where it needs to be, even without leading rusher Kavorian Barnes out there today. I feel like the run game's going to keep getting better. They're going to keep giving Josh something extra for him to where he's not going to have to go out and throw for 400 yards every game.
Yep.
But I'm real impressed with every running back that's on the roster. I mean, every single of those 5 guys at some point through the 3 games this season has shown something. And I myself have trust in any of those guys going out there and getting yards in tough situations. But for Trent Battle, as long as he's been here, 5th-year senior, came in as a quarterback, could have gone probably back home to South Alabama or some smaller schools and probably got a lot more playing time. For him to wait for his time to shine,
Yeah.
I feel great for him and just really proud that he stuck around.
The thing that I think is the biggest takeaway through 3 games for this TCU offense is that they are much more complete than they were a year ago. Just with Hoover's mobility, which we've talked about, with the running game taking a step forward this year, with the depth across the field as well. I think it's a testament to this coaching staff's recruiting ability. I know that a lot of folks get caught up in recruiting rankings a lot of the time, but I think the development that this coaching staff has shown they're capable of and the level at which they are recruiting against their Big 12 peers goes a long way to the product we're seeing on the field right now. Now, before we get into the defense and talk a little bit about that side of football, because they deserve their flowers today too. They held SMU to their lowest point total of the year. I want to talk about a couple of the things that we saw from this offense today that maybe weren't the best. We already talked on Josh Hoover's accuracy was a little lacking today. But along that offensive line, they struggled at times in pass protection against a 4-man rush. They got a couple really important penalties today. There were a couple holding calls, a couple false starts. Just wasn't the cleanest game from the offensive line. What was was that more of just first game against a really big defensive front? Was that something that we need to be concerned about? Just thoughts on the offensive line.
I think just facing a really talented defensive line from SMU, it was by far the best defensive line they faced this year. I think at some point an offensive line is going to have a game where they're just going to struggle. They've been really, really good up to this point, hadn't allowed a sack. I don't even think Josh had hardly been hurried through the first 2 games, but it was kind of concerning to see that. You saw guys that were pretty consistent the first 2 games struggle today.
Yeah.
Not throwing out any names, but we all know who they are. The false starts, the penalties, those were obviously concerning. They've got to get that cleaned up, but going against a 4-man rush and getting that kind of pressure, that kind of makes me antsy a little bit, seeing what the rest of the Big 12 is going to throw at them. But in the end, they still scored 35 points. They were still able to protect Josh enough to make some of those throws. They were still good enough to open some lanes, but there is definitely room for improvement.
Yeah, I think it has more to do with this being that first real test, because we know how much SMU has invested on the defensive line. They did return a guy that they had 4 or 5 sacks last year. So if there is, I think most of the talent on their defense is up front. So I think, when it's your first time going up against somebody that can match or maybe even exceed your talent in some areas, there are going to be some miscues, there are going to be some missteps. So I think this game coming up against Arizona State, who returns a lot of their defenders from last season, will really they'll tell me whether it's a concern or whether it's just, this is your first test, which you passed, but maybe you passed with a B instead of having an A like you did in those first 2 weeks. So I want to give SMU more credit instead of making it more of a concern for TCU, but I think we get a repeat performance on Friday where, Arizona State's pressuring TCU to just a 3 or 4-man rush. I think it would be a bit of a concern for me.
I mean, I'm sure that the offensive line would be the first group to tell you they need to play better.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, I think that the level of expectation for that unit is higher than what we saw today, from the penalties to the pressures. But I do think you give a lot of credit to SMU for having the talent to make things difficult on this TCU front that has been so solid. I'm with you, Stephen. I mean, I'm not happy. I wouldn't say that I was like, hey, this was exactly, but they did enough to win, and now they've been tested in a way that they need to be tested ahead of conference play. So not the best performance, not the worst, but at the end of the day, in the fourth quarter, they were much better than they were in the first 3 quarters. They were the bigger, stronger, tougher team down the stretch, and a lot of that started with the way they blocked in the front, and they were able to get time for Josh when he needed it, for him to get the ball to receivers that could make plays. That's what matters.
Moving over to the other side of the ball, TCU holds SMU to 24 points, lowest output of the season. Jamel Johnson, first 2 interceptions of his career. Really good play from Caleb Elarms, or really good play from linebackers overall today. Much improved in the secondary, I thought, save for a couple drives where Kevin Jennings just made things happen because he had a really good day. Overall, takeaways from the defense.
I thought this was a really solid performance overall. To me, a lot of success SMU had, I just thought that was just Kevin Jennings just making almost elite high-level throws. Like that seam route to Jordan Hudson. I know Bud Clark was kind of in coverage, but like if that pass is off by an inch, that's a pick by Bud Clark. But He was throwing dots. There was another one he threw against Bud. Bud was all over the guy. He went in for the swat, but Kevin Jennings, I think that was one of the most impressive performances. I know he threw those 2 picks. That's at the end of the game where they're kind of pressing, trying to force the ball down the field. But I think you hold SMU 3.5 yards per carry. They want to establish a run. So I think that's with the way they just ran over at TCU last year in Dallas, just to hold them under 4 yards per carry. I think that just shows how much this defense has grown, especially up front. They didn't even have Zach Chapman today, which Sonny Dykes revealed after the game. And I do think the secondary played much better in the second half. Vernon Glover, who gave up a big 30-ish yard completion to Jordan Hudson on that kind of that decisive drive where they got the ball back. He made back-to-back plays and coverage. So he was kind of benched throughout the game for McAlister for a little bit as well too. So I think everybody across the board, it wasn't always pretty, but I think that had more to do with Kevin Jennings just being one of the best quarterbacks in college football. So I think that the fan base should feel very optimistic about the defense and how much progress they made since last season.
Our camera died, but we're still rolling on here at the. Keep talking, guys.
Okay.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I was going to say, I agree. I think in the first half, they were playing on their heels, but a lot of that credit goes to Jennings and the way that he was performing. I mean, he was putting balls on the money, absolutely. But man, that drive, was it the drive right after SMU had taken the lead and TCU had, I think, a 3-and-out, right, and had to punt, and that defense came in force. Yeah, the defense came in and they Jennings, I think, 3 passing attempts and 0 yards, right? So to me, that says a lot about the team, the kind of team this defense wants to be and is capable of being. And after Sonny called out the secondary a week ago, he gave them credit this week for performing when they needed to. So they finished the game strong. They were much better in the second half. Really great adjustments by Andy Avalos and that defensive staff, I think, too. And give credit to Jennings for being the lead quarterback, and give credit to TC defense for stepping up when they needed to most.
Hey, they held SMU to less yards than Abilene Christian got.
So, I mean,
that's an improvement. They went from allowing 453 last week to 384 against SMU. But I'm going to echo what you guys said, because it goes without saying, Kevin Jennings is a really good quarterback.
Sure, yeah.
I saw some people thinking, well, TCU needs to be a little bit more disciplined when they're rushing him. I'm just telling you, there's some plays that guy was able to make, eluding the rush. I mean, when Caleb got to him, he was the third guy that had a chance at him. I mean, I think Andy did a good job of dialing up some blitzes coming from different angles to try to confuse him a little bit. But give props to Kevin Jennings. I mean, you got to give credit to that guy, because he was able to elude rushes. And some of those throws, the one where Bud Clark had excellent coverage over the middle to the 7-yard down at the south end zone, that touchdown pass. The pass that he threw to Jordan Hudson, which I'm sure anchored every single TCU fan. I mean, he couldn't have walked down and handed it to him any better. That was a perfect pass, 34-yard pass. But there was plays where the TCU defense, the secondary, Vernon Glover had a big-time pass breakup today. I think, overall the pressure from the front seven was better than what we saw last week. I felt like the linebackers played better. I think your boy Colin Jackson had some key plays again today, Stephen. That's every time we say
nickname on the team.
K9.
Simple but effective. K9.
K9. We love it, but the defense improved dramatically from what we saw last week. There were some big plays, but you're going against some really, really talented receivers. You're going against a big running back and TJ Harden. That was, the play over the middle where he caught the ball and they bounced off of him. That was pretty impressive to see from that running back. But overall, I think they did a much, much better job this week.
All right, my computer is about to die, so we're going to wrap this up. But I do want to leave us with this final note. This was Sonny's 101st win as a career head coach. It was his 30th win at TCU. Here's why I think that's really important. He is now 30-13 at TCU overall. He is now 18-9. I guess he's still been 18-9 all season in conference play. He matched his win total from his time at SMU today, and he's got a better win percentage in 4 years here than he did in 4 years there, and he's only a quarter of the way through year 4. So best coaching stop of Sonny Dykes' career so far, just from a total wins perspective, from a win percentage as well. And it feels like, you look around the country and you see Billy Napier struggling, you see some of these other coaches struggling from that same coaching cycle.
Don't do it, Jamie.
Seems like TCU may have made the right call going and getting Sonny Dykes.
Okay. I thought you were going to go another direction.
I thought it was going to
go in another direction, man.
I drew everybody off sides. Hey, for Jeremy Clark, Stephen Johnson, and Melissa Treebwasser, I am Jamie Plunkett. We'll catch you out in Phoenix after the Arizona State game next week on Friday night. But until then, go Frogs.
Go Frogs.